Hello, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to take you through all of the series that I finished in 2019. Again, as it's January, these end of year videos are still relevant, right? Surprisingly, I actually wrapped up a few series in 2019. I didn't think it would be as many as it is, but I have wrapped up 9 series in 2019. Seems fitting, you know, 9 and 9. Would have been great if I could have rounded that up to a 10, but I didn't. So yeah, I'm just going to take you through the 9 series that I finished in 2019, let you know what I think of the series overall and their conclusions. It just seems like a nice little wrap-up sort of thing to do. So without further rambling about what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I have tried to put these in the order of which I finished them, but I could be wrong in the middle because mid-year is a bit foggy. But the first series that I wrapped up in 2019 is undoubtedly the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, concluding with Dreams of Gods and Monsters. I read this around this time last year, I finished it up pretty early into 2019, and this is one of my favourite series of all time ever. I absolutely love this. So this is Daughter of Smoke and Bone, Days of Blood and Starlight, and then Dreams of Gods and Monsters, and it follows Karoo, who is a young art student who has a door through to Elsewhere, where the closest thing she has to family is, who also happen to be Chimera, and then one day the door to Elsewhere is shut off, and she kind of has to work out what to do with her life, how to get back to her family, and what she may find on the other side of said door when she finds her way through it. I absolutely love this series so much. Karoo is one of my favourite characters. I am so into this series, which surprises me because there is quite a strong romance plot throughout it, but the fantastical elements totally outweigh that. I think the reason I like this is because although the romance kind of is pivotal to the plot, it is a key plot aspect, there is also so much else going on throughout this series. And I did give every book in this trilogy 5 stars. I listened to these on audiobook, and every time I would put my headphones in to listen to them, it just felt so comforting. It felt like being in a safe place and just so soothing and fantastic. These, I think, are probably the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. In my opinion, I know other people have listened to them and haven't liked the narrator, but for me, I think the narrator was perfect for this. I loved it so much. And yeah, I gave all of the books 5 stars, so of course the series overall gets a big ol' 5 stars from me. Completely recommend. It is so beautifully written, but you know, it's Laini Taylor. Did I even say this was by Laini Taylor? It's Laini Taylor, so it's going to be beautifully written, it's going to have that sense of whimsy and be very poetic, but also the plot was so strong. It's not just like a dead plot in flowery writing, it is the full package, and I absolutely adored it. Next up is the Even the Darker Stars duology, which concludes with All the Wandering Light by Heather Fawcett. Again, I loved this a lot. I think I gave both books 4 stars, so it is a 4-star book series. It's not quite as mind-blowing as the last one, but still very solid. I had a very good time with this and loved it. The first book in this duology is one that cemented my love for polar fantasy. It was not what I was expecting when I went into it. It's about a young girl called Kamzin who always wanted to be an explorer and climb these mountains and explore the world and join the King's Royal Explorers and go adventuring. What I wasn't expecting from it though is how many fantastical elements there were throughout it. There were ghosts, there were witches, there were dragons, there was so much else in that plot that I wasn't expecting but got, and it was fantastic. Also the snowy Arctic adventure vibes, so up my alley, and absolutely loved it. The second one picks up exactly where the first one left off and concludes everything so nicely. I absolutely loved this duology. I read this one for Polathon last year, so also if you're looking for a Polathon recommendation, this duology is fantastic, and I loved it very much. Next up is The Extinction Trials by S.M. Wilson. This is the third one, Rebel. So we have The Extinction Trials, The Extinction Trials Exile, and then The Extinction Trials Rebel is the third book in the trilogy and therefore the conclusion. This book is marketed as The Hunger Games meets Jurassic Park, and I haven't read either of those things, but from my very basic knowledge of them both, kind of makes sense as a comparison to me. The first book follows Storm and Lincoln, who are entered into the Extinction Trials. It is a dystopian world here. They live on an island populated with the humans, which is kind of dying. They don't have the resources, they don't have the food, everyone's on very stark rations. It's not a very good way of living. However, across the ocean is the sister island, which is beautiful and green and has everything that they need. However, is also the home to all of the dinosaurs. The trials that Storm and Lincoln get entered into is to decide on a number of people who will go on a trip to the other island to try and find some resources and bring them back. I thought this was fun. Heads up, it is not well written. It is not a literary masterpiece. It is flawed massively, but it is fun, in my opinion. I can completely see why people wouldn't enjoy this. And from my perspective, I think this trilogy is like a 3-star sort of trilogy. But as a palate cleanser, as a fun, action-packed, just pleasant read, I really enjoyed them. And I would recommend them. They were fun. I would read them again. Like, I had a pretty good time with this. It was really interesting to see about all of the dinosaurs on this other island and the way that civilization wanted to go about that problem and stuff. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, because the first book is just those trials and then it goes on from there in the second and third. But I really liked it. I get why people wouldn't. The writing is not fantastic. It is very much a 3-star series. But I had such a fun time with these, and as I say, I definitely would reread them, just because they're fun. That's the only way I have to describe these. This is my idea of a light, fun read. Next up is a series I don't actually own anymore, but it is the Strange the Dreamer duology, which of course concludes with Muse of Nightmares. The first book in this duology I loved a lot more than the second, but I think I gave them both 4 stars, which is a big deal because everyone seems to love these and gave them 5 stars. But Muse of Nightmares was quite possibly one of my most disappointing reads of the year. I expected to love it, I expected great things from it. I loved the first one a lot, and I know I love Laini Taylor's writing because her Daughter of Smoke and Bone series is obviously a 5-star series for me. I absolutely adored it. However, this duology gets 4 stars from me. It just wasn't as good. The first one was definitely better than the second one, and the second one turned into way too much of a sappy romance story for me to be all that into it. I just wasn't. I think the reason I settled on 4 stars for the second book is the writing was 5-star, the plot was 3, give it a 4. But yeah, the second book was definitely disappointing to me. If you're unfamiliar with Strange the Dreamer, it follows Laszlo Strange, who is a librarian who has read about this mystical city called Weep. And one day his dreams of Weep become a reality as he has chosen to travel to the city of Weep to help them with a problem that they have. Without spoiling it, I won't say any more than that. A bit of a disappointing series to me because I thought I was going to love it a lot more, but still a solid 4 stars. Next up is a series that was a reread for me, but that is the Shades of Magic trilogy by Victoria Schwab. My favourite trilogy of all time, my favourite books ever. Love them. They have Lila Bardin, who is my favourite character ever. These were a reread for me this year. I was buddy reading them with Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. I don't think he ever actually finished this one though, so what are you playing at, dude? I speak about these enough. You guys know they're my favourites. 5 stars, completely adore them. If you are unfamiliar with this series, it follows Kel, who is an Antari who can travel between 4 alternate Londons. They are in 4 like parallel worlds almost, and only Antari can travel between them because the means of travel between them has been closed off due to a dangerous magic. Kel gets himself wrapped up in said dangerous magic and triggers the events of this series, and he meets Delilah Bard along the way, who is just the most kick-ass lady ever. I love her a lot. So very magical, very action-packed. I love this a lot. 5 stars, but I won't rave on for too long about it because that would just be boring. Continuing with more Schwab, I then finished the Monsters of Verity duology, which concludes with Our Dark Duet. Of course, This Savage Song being the first book in the duology. I had such a fantastic time reading this. I don't think a book has ever made me feel quite so emotional and broken my heart in quite the same way that this book did. This Savage Song follows the 2 main characters, Kate and August, who are on 2 different sides of kind of a like civil war within this town that is divided by the seam, which is populated with monsters. On one side of the seam you have the Harkers, who believe people should pay for protection from these monsters, very corrupt over on their side, and then you have the Flynns, who are kind of fighting for freedom, sort of. And they are fighting the monsters to earn their protection. And our 2 main characters are on different sides of the seam, and their paths cross and they get mixed up in some stuff together. I won't say any more than that because I really don't want to spoil this, but I loved it so much. This book was so incredibly emotional and broke my heart in so many ways, so bittersweet, but I had such an intense time with this and absolutely loved it. 5 stars to both books, 5 stars to the duology. Absolutely adored it. See myself rereading it for sure. It's Schwab. I love Schwab. She's a queen. She can do no wrong by me, as we know. But yeah, this was fantastic and undoubtedly one of my best books of the year. Next up, we have the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. You may well know that me and Becca from Becca and the Books were buddy reading the Grishaverse last year. We read the entirety of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, so Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. I think the last book is my favourite from the trilogy, which I think is an unpopular opinion. A lot of people don't like this 3rd book, but I did. I had a good time. I went into this trilogy not really expecting much because everyone said not to expect much. I've seen a lot of negativity around this series. Yes, it's so like overwhelmingly popular, so confusing on that front. But I read the 1st book, liked it. Read the 2nd book, didn't. That made my worst books of the year list. Read the 3rd one, liked it. So overall, I think I would rate the series probably a 3 star in total. Not terrible, worth a read, not fantastic. Considering when it was published, it's very much like a book of its time. Not incredibly outstanding or original, but worth the read if you want to read it. It's not awful. So yeah, 3 stars. Pretty average. Next up, I concluded the Perfect Trilogy by Helena Duggan. The conclusion is the Battle for Perfect, so the first one is A Place Called Perfect, and then the Trouble with Perfect, and then concluding with the Battle for Perfect. This trilogy follows a young girl called Violet who moves to a town called Perfect because her dad is going to work at the opticians there. However, everything in Perfect is potentially not as perfect as it seems. Everyone's a bit weird. There's a couple of guys running the place that are a bit dodgy, and Violet works out what's going on with the help of a mysterious lad called Boy. And of course, the kids save the day. This trilogy, like the first one, reminded me a lot of Coraline. It felt very Coraline-esque, but definitely has its own path. And I really liked it. It's got those sort of creepy vibes that I love in a middle grade, and it was an adventure. There was strong friendships. It was a fun ride to go on. I enjoyed it a lot. Violet is a very me sort of character. I liked her sass and her attitude. She's pretty strong-willed. I do like her a fair bit. And of course she has some flaws as well, as all good characters do. But yeah, I like this series. I think overall I would give it a 4 star. It's really a fun journey. There are some zombies, there's some weird science going on in here, there's a whole cast of characters, like the side characters in this are really good. You get to know them, like they're just townspeople that pop in and out of scenes here and there, but like you get to know who they all are, and I think that the way the cast of characters is built in this series is really fantastic. 4 stars, creepy, atmospheric, middle grade. I recommend if you haven't read. I have totally got a dead leg going on here, but we've only got one left, so that's good. The final series that I wrapped up in 2019 is the Spellslinger series, which concludes with Crownbreaker by Sebastian de Castell. I've raved about this a lot. This was on my best books of the year list. I have gone on about this series for quite some time now. I raved about the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth book in this series. I absolutely adore them, and I think they've been underhyped for far too long. I give this series a big fat 5 stars, and if you have not read it, you absolutely should. The first book follows Kellen as he's turning 16. He's just about to take his major's trials. Only a slight problem is that his magic is gone. In comes Farius Parfait with a few tricks up her sleeve to help him through, and then the shit hits the fan and it all goes to hell from there. The characters in this are so fantastic. The way we've seen Kellen grow throughout this, and like the way he's developed, how much of the world he's seen, how much he's learned, it's just so good. And then on top of that, Sebastian de Castell's writing style is fantastic. But again, I've raved about that so much in so many recent videos, you probably don't need me to tell you again. It's sarcastic, it's witty, he like breaks down the barriers and talks to the reader. It's fantastic. I love it. And this conclusion was perfect. It had so many twists and turns, but like wrapped everything up, and then the author's note at the end, oh, incredible. I'm so happy to have been along for the journey on this series, but also so devastated that it's over because I have loved it so much. But yeah, you've heard me talk about it a lot, so I'm gonna stop. 5 stars. You should read this series. And there we have it. There are the 9 series that I completed in 2019, and I liked most of them. Hooray! I had such a good reading year in 2019 though. We know this from my statistics. But yeah, I'm happy to have wrapped up some series, knocked off some open ones, because we all know I have far too many open series on my TBR. And you can see in my series I want to finish in 2020 video, the series that I would like to knock off as a priority this year, but they're the ones I knocked off last year. If you have read any of these series, please feel free to chat to me about them, drop a comment down below or whatever. I would love to know what you thought, but that is it from me today. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!